meditation, we'll look at the last 4 chapters in Revelation. That's been our congregational Bible reading for the last several weeks, the book of Revelation. Now direct your attention, first of all, to the first chapter in verse 3. And keep in mind, this is the words of Jesus relayed to John through the angel that Jesus sent. He says in verse 3 of chapter 1, "Blessed is he who reads, and those who hear the words of the prophecy, and heed the things which are written in it, for the time is near." So keep in mind, read, hear, and heed these words. So over in chapter 18 through 22, the entire book of Revelation is written to encourage those brethren. And we need to view it the same way, as an encouragement, as motivation. And throughout the book of Revelation, the word overcome or overcame is used some 12 to 13 times, depending on the translation that you use. And to the 7 churches, the letters that were written to them, Jesus promised those that overcame the tree of life. Second death would be harmless. Promised the hidden manna, that their names would be in the book of life, that they would be a pillar in the temple of God, and to sit on his throne. All of this to encourage those brethren. And it should be an encouragement to us as well. In chapter 18, we see the fall of Babylon. In chapter 19, we see the rejoicing in heaven, the marriage of the Lamb, the coming of Christ. In chapter 20, we see where Satan is bound and cast into the lake of fire and the judgment scene. And in chapter 21, the description of heaven. And in chapter 22, the heavenly scene, the final message and warning. In chapter 21 and verse 4, it says, "He will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and there will no longer be any death. There will no longer be any mourning or crying or pain. The first things have passed away." And he who sits on the throne said, "Behold, I am making all things new." And he said, "Write, for these words are faithful and true." So there's no doubt. There's no wondering about this. These words are faithful and true. Verse 6, "Then he said to me, 'It is done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. I will give to the one who thirsts from the spring of the water of life without cost. He who overcomes will inherit these things, and I will be his God, and he will be my son.'" Down to verse 27, "Nothing unclean and no one who practices abomination and lying shall ever come into it, but only those whose names are written in the book, in the Lamb's book of life." Chapter 22 and verse 5, "And there will no longer be any night, and they will not have need of the light of a lamp nor the light of the sun, because the Lord God will illumine them, and they will reign forever and ever. And he said to me, 'These words are faithful and true. Behold, I am coming,'" down to verse 12 in chapter 22, "Behold, I am coming quickly, and my reward is with me, to render to every man according to what he has done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last, the beginning and the end. Blessed are those who wash their robes, so that they may have the right to the tree of life, and may enter the gates into the city." So we see these words are faithful and true, and then he mentions the water of life, the book of life, and the tree of life. All of these will be in heaven. As this was an encouragement to these brethren that experienced suffering and much difficulty. We experience suffering and difficulties today. Each one of us have different things that we suffer and different things that we deal with. And so we're encouraged to overcome, to be steadfast, to remain faithful. And these things will be our reward. On the negative side, in verse 21, chapter 21 and verse 8, "But for the cowardly and unbelieving and abominable, murderers, immoral persons, sorcerers, idolaters, and all liars, their part will be in the lake that burns with fire and brimstone, which is the second death." And that's where Satan will be. Chapter 22 and verse 15, outside are the dogs and the sorcerers and the immoral persons and the murderers, the idolaters, and everyone who loves and practices lying. So we see encouragement two different ways here, in a positive way and a negative way. And we see motivation in two different ways, in a positive and a negative way. So we need to be motivated through this encouragement, seeing what our reward is and seeing what the punishment is of those that do not overcome, those that are not steadfast, those that do not remain faithful. So the question is tonight, are you going to overcome? The trials and tribulations that we face in this life often overcome people. But we need to not allow that to happen. We need to overcome those trials and tribulations. As the brethren here were encouraged through these words from Jesus through John, we need to use these as words of encouragement for ourselves. If you've not named the name of Christ, then this reward is not yours. We've been blessed once again by the grace of God that we have another opportunity, time and